So, hello and most welcome to 1228. We will today continue with the article of Ashish Dalela, Zero, the invention of zero. And he goes into the state of science today, is in a terrible condition, and what to do about it, what are the solutions, or rather, what are the underlying reasons for the rather recent development. I would say it started prominently after the Great War or Second World War. Meaning of science, the next paragraph. All our experiences are qualitative. From sense perception, qualities like taste, touch, smell, sound and sight, to concepts like table and chair, to judgments of truth, right and good, to the feeling of happiness and unhappiness. The associated sense of proximity and distance as near and far, and the attraction or revulsion that establishes a relation to the world in a perspective. All these qualities are mutually defined and conceptually inseparable. There is no justification for modeling the world as separable objects counted by numbers, changed by forces, and modeled according to some mathematical equations. And yet, the science of separate objects measured by instruments, counted by numbers, changed by forces, and predicted. Sorry for the interruption. Let's continue. All these qualities are mutually defined and conceptually inseparable. There is no justification for modeling the world as separable objects, counted by numbers, changed by forces, and modeled according to some mathematical equations. And yet, the science of separate objects, measured by instruments, counted by numbers, changed by forces, and predicted by mathematical equations, arises if A, there is a desire for individualism, objectification, separability, forcible control, and pursuit of power. B, latent impressions of models exist axiomatically in the memory. If such desires and or impressions did not exist, then the model explaining observations would also be different. If we have the correct model of scientific discovery, namely that it involves 1. Observation, 2. A desire to explain it in a certain preferred way, 3. A latent repository of impressions conforming to the preferred method of explanation, and 4. The recognition that the model appears subtly based on the desire and the latent impressions. Then we will not insist that there is only one kind of science. Rather, the current model of science would be contingent upon A, our desire to explain the observation using separated objects described using numbers controlled by forces, and B, the latent impressions of separation, quantification, and forcefulness. If our desire and impressions change, the model of reality will change with the same observations. Such a science will be empirical because it uses observations, and rational because it uses an alternative model of reality. But it would not be a current science. Science is a common noun that means reason and observation. It is not a proper noun in which reasons equals mathematics and observation equals instrument measurement. Most people, however, reduce the common noun to a proper noun. In their vision, there is only one kind of science that the West envisioned at the dawn of enlightenment, and everything else is unscientific pseudoscience. That equality is the result of neglecting the process of scientific discovery and removing the subjective aspects, that is, preference for some models and latent impressions of those models, from the process of scientific discovery, and retaining only objective aspects, that is, equations and data. Classification of mentalities. There are many types of scientific models, which can be classified into 6 broad categories if you understand the classifications of mental desires, thoughts, and activities. We have to psychoanalyze scientists to divide their theories, ideas, and models into different kinds of mentalities. There is no universal science because the mentality of people is not universal. However, insofar as there are better and worse mentalities, there can be better and worse sciences. I described these 6 categories of mentalities in an earlier post: force, profit, duty, self-absorption, respect, and love, in the context of Dharma. Dharma is our natural attraction and desire, the ideas or models we apply to ourselves and things in the world, and how we use them to organize a society. I sometimes call these precognitions 3 cognitions, emotions, and relations. For instance, the dharma of a warrior, which is desire and proclivity, is to be aggressive. The dharma of the warrior, when it comes to duty, is to protect the weak. And the dharma, when it comes to ability, is that he can be trained in weapons and warfare. When we classify dharma into mutually exclusive categories, we identify internally consistent models of reality that cut across cognitions, relations, and emotions, or natural sciences, social sciences, and mind sciences. The same approach is used for nature, society, and persons to be internally consistent. With that brief background, I will now turn to summarize these categories previously discussed. Six models of reality. The person with the desire for domination invokes latent impressions of control to create a scientific model of objectification, separation, quantification, force, and mathematical laws to exploit nature. He organizes society based on the exploitation of people and resources, and considers this ideology of coercion, domination, power, and supremacy the natural way of reality. Conversely, a person with the desire and impressions of rights, fairness, and equality invokes latent impressions of mutually beneficial transactions to create a model of reality in which everything works for its self-interests, but with a fairness and equality without disregarding the benefits, rights, and interests of others, and without exerting force, power, coercion, or supremacy over others. A person with a desire and impressions of dutifulness sacrifices notions of personal rights and supersedes them with a mandate of duties. Such a person sacrifices their personal benefits in order to fulfill their responsibilities. When this is a model of reality, then everything works in an orderly manner, not out of force, not for personal rights and profits, but simply because it is one's duty. Similarly, there are transcendent models of reality based on self-absorption, respect, and love. And each of these absorption, there are no laws, no rights or duties, because everything is free, egalitarian, and self-reliant. Respect, in which there are no rights and duties, there is complete freedom and self-reliance, yet the order in the world and society is created out of respect for others. And love, in which the affection for others takes precedence over any former preoccupation with freedom, egalitarianism, or self-absorption, although there are still no mandates of duty, desires, or rights for profits, or obedience to forceful laws. The manifestation of reality. The Dharma of love includes the best aspects of the other 5 types of Dharma, while disregarding their worst aspects. For instance, the best aspect of force, ensuring someone's happiness, exists in love, but the worst aspect of exploitation is absent. The best aspects of rights, as the authority over the loved one to ensure their happiness, exists in love, but the worst aspects of entitlement is absent. The best aspects of duty, sacrifice for the other person, exists in love, but the worst aspects of not going beyond the call of duty is absence. The best aspects of self-absorption, being self-satisfied and self-reliant, exists in love, but the worst aspect of self-centeredness is absent. The best aspect of respect, using our freedom and power to serve the respected one, exists in love, but the worst aspect of distantness is absent. Thereby, the Dharma for love is the most perfect, complete, and fundamental reality, from which other realities are produced by hiding the best and revealing the worst. The process of hiding and revealing involves the addition of egotism, distantness, and separation in a person. When egotism is added to love, then the distance of respect is created. When egotism is added to respect, then the isolation of self-absorption is created. When egotism is added to self-absorption, then the defiance of sacrifice in duty is created. When egotism is added to duty, then the entitlement to personal rights is created. When egotism is added to rights, then the coercive force of exploitation is created. Thereby, the most fundamental reality is love. But when egotism is added to it progressively, then 5 different kinds of realities are successively produced. Most of the above are straightforward, but the idea that duties involve the ego needs some discussion. A trivial example is that when a couple fights, the person who feels hurt suddenly starts cleaning the closet, washing the dishes, mopping the floor, cooking the meal, or taking extra care of the kids, which they would not do otherwise, just to make their partner feel guilty about not doing enough. Their accidental business is meant to demonstrate how dutiful and responsible they are in contrast to their partner. They do not want to abandon the relationship, but they want acknowledgement. The demonstration of dutifulness is an act of defiance, demanding their place under the sun. Similarly, if a person does not want to go beyond the call of their duty, they will generally say, "I am just doing my duty." The egotism of duty is the boundaries of what a person will and will not do. Generally, most people can go beyond the call of their duty, not necessarily for profit, but to help others. That help is a mark of concern, respect, camaraderie, or affection for the other person. Therefore, if a person takes shelter of their duty to not go beyond the call of duty, they reveal a lack of concern, respect, camaraderie, or affection for the other person. I will do just what I'm required to do and no more is ego. When the ego is progressively removed, then one progresses through 6 steps from an ideology of force to profit, duty, self-absorption, respect, and love. When the ego is progressively added, then one regresses from the ideology of love to that of respect, self-absorption, duty, profit, and force. The ideology of love is the highest, and that of force is the lowest, defined by the quality of happiness, pleasure, and enjoyment. The ideology of force is hidden in the world of love, and the ideology of love is hidden in the world of force. Thus, these worlds are distinct, but they are not totally separate, because what is hidden also exists, although remains invisible or unmanifest. Hence, the correct statement is that these worlds are distinct, but mutually inseparable. Revelation and hiding. The process of revelation is described in a preliminary form by identifying two categories called Brahman and Maya. Brahman is the fundamental, complete, and perfect truth, and Maya, which means that which is not, is the agency of hiding. When some aspect of the complete truth is hidden, then another aspect is revealed, since something is always revealed by hiding something else. Therefore, Maya is also sometimes described as an agency for revelation. Generally, Maya is described as the agency of revelation. When an inferior aspect is hidden and a superior aspect is revealed. Conversely, Maya is described as hiding when a superior aspect is hidden and an inferior aspect is revealed. This dual aspect of Maya can be understood through the problem of universals. A universal such as a man is impossible to define if we want to include all and only men in that category. For example, if we define man as a two-legged animal, as Aristotle did, then the man who has lost one leg in a war would no longer be a man, while penguins would be deemed men. If we enhance the definition to an intelligent two-legged animal, then dumb humans would be excluded from humanity, and intelligent penguins would be included in humanity. Every definition of man is either too broad or too narrow, and sometimes both. It is too narrow in one way or and too broad in another way. Socrates demonstrated this problem of universals by debating with Greeks at street corners. He showed that whatever definition they came up with was problematic. Socrates was then put to death on the charge of corrupting the youth. But the problem did not disappear with the death of Socrates. Plato, who succeeded Socrates, then devised a clever scheme in which there is a world of pure forms, in which an ideal man exists, and men on earth are but poor reflections of that ideality. That is, they are less than ideal men. For instance, a man who has lost one leg in a war is a non-ideal man. The ingenuity of this scheme is that you can add numerous attributes to define an ideal man. That is, the capacity to play tennis, write books, perform in an orchestra, lead a government, and so on. To preclude penguins, horses, birds, trees, and fishes from the definition of man. The definition of man is now very narrow, and most men will be precluded from the notion of an ideal man. To bring all these excluded men back to manliness, you can call them non-ideal men. Plato's ingenuity is that the word man means an ideal man. And by adding non-ideal to man, you can describe ordinary men. Just like a black table is also a table, similarly a non-ideal man is still a man, although not an ideal man. Non-ideality is therefore an additional trait that hides some aspects of the ideal man to produce a non-ideal man world. Thereby, penguins and horses can be excluded from man, while men with one leg and of less intelligence are included. The problem with Platonism is that there is no clear definition of which aspects of an ideal man can be hidden, and to which extent before a man becomes a penguin. If an ideal man is defined by some traits, and we remove those traits one by one, at what point of removal do we say we have crossed over from the domain of non-ideal man into that of non-ideal penguins? We can try solving this problem by defining some essential traits of manliness without which someone will not be a man. While the ideal man is the largest superset of manly traits, the essential man would be the smallest subset of necessary traits for manliness. Obviously, a man's hands and legs would be excluded from the definition of the essential man. Likewise, oratory, leadership, or athleticism could be inessential. If you ponder this problem sufficiently, you will realize that there is no universal definition of essential traits. What people consider the smallest subset of manly traits to identify someone as a man changes with time, place and situation. Some people might say that the essential trait for manliness is in the XY chromosomes. Others might require men to be responsible and hardworking. We can also define classes of men, that is, intellectuals, warriors, businessmen, and workers, with different traits included or excluded from manliness, thus undermining the very notion of essential manliness. This problem can only be solved by saying that the ideal man is a fundamental concept and not the concept constructed by adding or removing traits that are then considered more fundamental than the ideal man. The traits that qualify a man, that is, a tall man, are removals from the ideal man, rather than the man being a sum of traits, like tallness. By adding more traits, we hide some aspects of an ideal man. Thus, the ideal man is of an ideal height, while short man and tall man are non-ideal qualifiers of the ideal man. Platonism fails if we make height and weight fundamental concepts, an ideal man as a derived concept produced by aggregating height and weight. Because even if we can define an ideal man as the supersets of traits, we cannot define the smallest subset of traits to preclude non-men. Platonism can be successful only if man is a fundamental concept and height and weight are derived concepts. Therefore, the Vedic philosophy states that Brahman is the ideal person and Maya is the qualifier of Brahman that hides aspects of Brahman. We cannot construct a person from traits like height, weight, color, and so on. If we try, then we will not have a way to determine non-person. However, if the ideal person is a fundamental concept, then we can hide aspects of that ideality to speak about a tall person and a short person. Now everything would be a person, because everything is a qualifier of the ideal or complete person. Traits like height and weight would merely be aspects of the ideal man, rather than fundamental traits that construct a person. The claim that traits construct a person is impersonalism, but the claim that traits are aspects of a person is personalism, and properties like height and weight have no fundamental reality. They are less real compared to the ideal person, which is the fundamental concept, and height and weight are merely aspects of that person. Now we have solved all the problems of Platonism. A, there is a complete and ideal man. B, this complete man is not constructed by aggregating traits. A non-ideal man may lack nearly all the traits of an ideal man, but he would still be a man if he is derived from an ideal man by hiding his traits. D, we don't need to define an essential man to delimit men. E, we rely on knowing what a given creature was derived from to know if he is a man or a penguin. F, men and penguin are partial aspects of the complete person. G, all concepts in the Platonic world are not equally fundamental. H, only two concepts, Brahman and Maya, are fundamental. And I, everything else is a derived concept. The nature of whole and part. When we think of aspects of something, we think in terms of whole and part, generally influenced by reductionism, in which there is no whole other than the parts. The anti-reductionist idea, in which the whole is the fundamental concept and the parts are the derived concepts, mandates a reversal in which the whole truth is also an aspect of the truth that is logically prior to all the other aspects. We can explicate this through examples. The whole elephant is the fundamental concept, and its trunk, tail, stomach, legs, and ears are derived concepts. The 5 blind men see the 5 parts, but the 6th visionary man sees the whole elephant, although while seeing the whole elephant, his attention is withdrawn from the details about the trunk, tail, stomach, legs, and ears. By the fact that the visionary man doesn't see what the blind men see, he too is in some sense blind, although he sees the whole truth. Thus, if the whole of Brahman is seen, then the partial products created by Maya would not be seen. The vision created by Maya is seen by blind men. By the fact that the vision created by Maya is hidden, there is a sense in which the whole truth is one aspect of the truth. This principle is described succinctly by emphasizing both God and his energy. God is complete truth, and his energies, all described as Maya, are partial truths. If God is seen, then the material world disappears from the vision. The complete vision, therefore, is that of seeing the world in God, because it is like seeing the elephant along with all its parts. By that vision, the world is a part of God and present in God. However, God is not reduced if we don't see the world. The limitation is therefore in our vision and not in God. Likewise, the whole forest is a fundamental concept, and the trees with leaves on them are derived concepts. The visionary man sees the whole forest, but not the leaves in them. The blind man sees the veins of individual leaves, but not the whole forest. Thereby, the whole forest is one aspect of the truth, just like veins on the leaves, and yet they are not equal to each other. Rather, some aspects are superior, greater, bigger, and prior to the other, inferior, lower, smaller, and later aspects. Thereby, when Maya reveals the complete Brahman, the vision is that of the whole truth. When Maya reveals the partial aspects of Brahman, the vision is a partial truth. When Maya hides Brahman completely, then there is no vision of the truth. Hence, the whole vision, partial vision, and no vision are aspects of the complete truth, produced by Maya hiding and revealing Brahman in many different ways for different observers. Seer, seen, and seeing. Once we demarcate the whole truth from the partial vision of the truth created by Maya, then the next question is, who is having the vision? Flawed answers to this question have led to 1200 years of debate in Vedanta philosophy. The most flawed answer in Advaita is that Brahman is the seer and Maya is the seen. The correct answer is that everything can be a seer, seeing and seen, but not at once. Seer, seeing and seen are potentials that are converted into a reality, alternative due to time or due to choice. Cosmic time is also cosmic choice. Thus, we are seers, but we can see, but we can also be seen. You might see a table and think it is an inert object. That will make you the seer and the table the seen. But the table is also a seer that is seeing you to convert you into a seen. If you walk naked in a room thinking that nobody is seeing you, the room and other things in it are seeing you, although you may not know that. The difference between the table and you is that the table is predominantly in the seen mood, while you are equally in the seer, seeing and seen moods. But if you become a rock star to perform on a stage, then you would also be predominantly in the seen mood, while the seeing and the seer modes will decline significantly. By being a rock star, you become an object, like a table, mostly seen but not much capable of seeing or being a seer. Thereby, a rock star loses his sense of self and is disconnected from reality because he is too busy being the seen, which then reduces the occasions on which he is the seer and seeing. Objectivity and personhood are therefore two logical extremes on a spectrum of the seer, seeing and seen. An object is that which is seen, but is mostly not seeing and a seer. A person is that which is a seer, is seeing, and is being seen almost equally. But if someone decorates their body provocatively or does outlandish things to draw attention to themselves, they are seen prominently but lose the seer and seeing modes of existence. They might be popular, but they forget who they are and lose touch with the reality around them. Therefore, when materialism rises, everything, including the seers who can be seeing, is objectified as the seen. To recover from the illness of materialism, a person is advised to detach from the world and stop seeing and being the seen. Instead, they must introspect and meditate to realize that they are the seers. When the seer mode becomes predominant, then they can also start seeing and being seen. But they know that they are distinct from the seen, and they can see reality correctly. Withdrawing from the world is therefore one of the processes for seeing the world correctly, in contrast to materialism. For instance, if you are struggling with a problem, then withdrawing from it for a short while before returning to it generally quickens its solution. Thereby, what you are not seeing often becomes self-evident by withdrawing from it. Thereby, Brahman and Maya are not separate things. They are rather the seen and the seeing modes of the same reality. Likewise, when Brahman enters into the seer mode, then it is called the Atma, or the Self, in which the seer, seeing and seen are merged in the experience of self-awareness by self-absorption. When the self-absorption disappears, then seer, seeing and seen are separated, and the same thing can alternatively be the seer, seeing and seen. Brahman, Maya and the Atma are thus separated by ending self-absorption. But once they are separated, they don't lose the seer, seeing and seen modalities. They can instead shift from one modality to another to see, be seen, or be a seer. The lawfulness of reality. The process of seeing is constraining the seen to fit into the seer. As we have discussed, someone might want to see the world as separated objects, moved by forces, known by measurement, while another person may see that same world is inextricably bound by love, moved by love, and known by love. Therefore, seeing is not one kind of thing. It can be divided into 6 different broad categories. By the different types of seeing, the same thing would be seen differently. The seer is the choice of the type of seeing, which then becomes the choice of the seen, as a part of the complete truth that could be seen. Thereby, if your method of seeing is force, separation, and measurement, then you will be excluded from contact with loving people. But if your method of seeing is love, then you will be excluded from contact with materialistic people. This is the basic law of nature. The type of seer, seeing and seen are matched to A. Let them see what it is to be on the other side of the seer, seeing, seen equation. B. Let them choose if they want to find a different scene by adopting a different method of seeing and being a different kind of seer. The first part of this law is called responsibility or tit for tat. The second part is called choice. To make alternative choices, there is the third part of the possibility of alternative realities. Thus, we can summarize everything in 3 words: possibility, choice, and responsibility. There are many possible worlds. You can choose to be in the world you like by picking a method of seeing. But if your choices change and differ from that world's ideology, then you will be moved into a world most adapted to your ideology, where you can be among the people who are just like you, and who will treat you just as you treat others. But if you think that the world is random, then you will be moved into a place of lawlessness. Some days you will get electricity and water, and on other days not. Some months you will get a salary, and in other months not. On some days your behavior will be rewarded, and on other days the same behavior will be punished. Exhausted by this randomness, you might say, I want a lawful and ordered world. Or, the world should be ordered. And then you will be moved into such a place, provided you deserve to be in a better world. If you break the order in the better world, then you will be back to the disordered world, where your ideology will be rewarded by bringing you face to face with it. Thus, there is no contradiction between lawfulness, choice, and lawlessness. It is not that every world is perfectly lawful, organized, and ordered. However, the process of moving a person into a lawless world is lawful. Similarly, there is no contradiction between choice, possibility, and reality. Reality is all that is possible. You can choose that part of reality governed by the type of ideology that you want to be governed by. You will then enter a reality governed by a different model of reality, ideally suited to the mentality of your choosing. Factually, the person who espouses randomness does so only as long as his life is ordered. The person who espouses determinism does so only as long as he has freedom. The person who says it's right does so only as long as he has might to fulfill his rights. The tit-for-tat law changes the situation, and the advocates of randomness lose in order their life. The advocates of determinism lose their freedom in their life, and the advocates of might is right lose their might and their rights. Then, unhappy due to the inability to accept what they were earlier professing, they are compelled to change their ideology. Well, it goes to show that what sort of frame of reference that you choose will also regulate what sort of world you encounter. And the very world that comes into existence, that is the world that is ruled by prana. Prana is the choice. So it's the very information flow that regulates the world. This is more fundamental than materialism. Materialism will always be one step behind and one tad out of focus. Both space and time get affected, and you will not have the sharpness that a world that is presented by absence and presencing is able to do. And I think that is the most important difference. And there are many parallels here to Martin Heidegger in aletheia and theia, hiding and uncovering. This in contrast to the light everywhere concept of the modern idea, since at least the touch of enlightenment, that shedding more light will show something more. That is a thought error, an error, thinking error. It shows that that person doesn't understand that he's constantly putting the world in a frame of reference. He never got the ability, I would say, of changing the camera, changing the focus, the shutter speed. He will be lacking that. And this is the reason most Western philosophers change philosophy all the time. It is like changing a camera because you don't know how to regulate it. So then you have another camera and you never understand the mechanism of seeing, understanding. Seeing is not a skill that you develop. Your eyes become fixated on a certain distance and cannot move in between the distances. And that is in itself very problematic and make do for a very strenuous world, a world where lack of energy, prana dissolves. And I think the substitute of calling prana energy in the Western world is caused by that lack of understanding of change of reference frame. If you don't understand that, you invent something else, and then you have the null position of energy for prana instead. Well, I say thank you very much and have a very pleasant afternoon. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.